everyone, welcome back to Hinkson Christian Podcast.
Hello everybody. Today it's episode 31. And
Jeez.
we're here with a very special guest.
Yeah.
Extremely special. The president, Hinkson himself,
Yes.
Dr. Jones.
Dr. Jones.
Wow.
That's right.
So yeah, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
So let's start off with one announcement.
Right.
Once again, our t-shirt raffle is continuing. And our next episode is the last episode of season 2. So this is your last chance.
To sub.
So make sure you're subscribed if you
Yeah.
want to win the t-shirt.
It's free, dude.
For free.
It's free.
So yeah.
It's a steal.
So some of you already know, but we're doing things a little bit differently. As we've done with other administration and teachers, we're doing like a Q&A style thing. So
I just want to know about you guys.
yeah, we just want to learn more from your wisdom.
Yes.
And knowledge.
your adult
So,
wisdom.
10 questions, I think.
10? Jeez.
I accidentally wrote it, so there's 2 ones.
Oh,
so
come
I
on.
thought there
So
were
which
9.
one is first then?
31 episodes.
Yeah.
All right, so what's the best way to prepare a pizza?
Yes.
The best way to prepare pizza.
You have a legendary pizza that everybody loves every time you make it.
Yes.
Wow. I mean, obviously you start with the dough. You can't have pizza without the dough. Anybody who tells you differently it's not pizza,
Yeah.
right?
Right.
So obviously the crust is extremely important.
Yeah.
We always believed that we should do our pizzas as close to Italian as possible.
Mm-hmm.
So that means using good tomatoes and using good mozzarella for pizza.
Nice.
And if you get the foundation right, everything else is just bonus. So
Right.
that's
Nice
what you
philosophy.
that's
Yeah.
what you do is you pay attention to the 3 basic elements: the crust, the sauce, and the cheese, and everything else will be
Bonus.
yeah.
All right.
That's a
That's
sick
great.
philosophy. All right. Second question. Another viewer. How stable is our financial situation at Hinkson? Interesting question.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow,
I would
serious
say God has been super good to us.
Definitely.
And at least right now, everything is very stable, which is a good thing.
Wow, that's cool.
I think, we're obviously still facing uncertainty in terms of this fall. We might be missing a few students because
Right.
of COVID restrictions and getting back in country and things of that nature.
Yeah.
But other than that, God has been very good to the school, and financially we're doing all right.
Nice.
So that's allowed us to do things like the Student Leadership Conference,
Right.
and
Yes.
helping fund senior trips and things of that nature. Not that we got to do that this year,
Yeah.
but
Still.
no bitterness, none at all.
No bitterness.
No,
Yeah, we're good.
None. I wasn't going to go. No, no,
Yeah, we're good. We're fine. We're fine.
totally okay.
Yeah.
Breathe. Okay. Oh, that's awesome to hear. All right.
Yeah, exactly. Well, the next question is, what is your favorite pizza topping?
Oh, topical.
Oh wow.
Yeah.
We used to have customers ask us, what's your favorite pizza?
Mm-hmm.
And I would always tell them, well, that's like asking me to choose between my children.
Wow.
I
Fair
can't
enough.
do that,
Wow.
I mean, we don't put pizzas on the menu unless we really like them.
Yeah.
That's a good way to do it.
But, oh man, probably my favorite pizza that we had was something we called it the Mountaineer. But it had something called speck, which is a special type of Italian ham that comes from northern Italy and the mountains regions,
Wow.
which is why we called it the Mountaineer.
Authentic.
And it had speck and provolone cheese and mushrooms on the basic crust and sauce. So
That sounds so fancy.
it
Yeah.
was really, really good. Super good pizza.
I have to ask now that I'm thinking about it.
Yeah.
Pineapple on pizza, yes or no?
If you had asked me 10 years ago, absolutely no. I hate
Right.
hot fruit.
Yeah.
But after owning our own business, our own pizzeria, I grew to like it.
Really?
At night we would often end up eating for dinner a pizza we had messed up. So if it has fruit on it, it has fruit on it, and you eat it, and that's what you have for dinner. So I learned to like it, and actually now I like pineapple on pizza. I will not specifically choose it, but if it's there, yes, I do like it. I found Russia's version of the Hawaiian to be absolutely fascinating with chicken and pineapple. But
Yeah,
Right.
that's weird.
You know.
Yeah.
so, yeah.
Okay.
That was interesting.
All right. Well, the next question is: do you watch anime?
Do I watch anime?
Who asked that? Which one of you asked that?
No, that's a great question.
I'm afraid I don't.
Okay.
And that goes back to my childhood even.
Right.
I don't remember if it was Transformers or which
Really?
cartoon it was, but Japanese animation style has just never been my favorite.
Right.
I'm a terrible human being.
No. I mean,
No,
that's
no.
fine. You have your preferences.
Yeah.
But there
We
it
can
is.
look over that.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Cut that out.
All right.
Great question, viewer. Do you watch anime? Okay, next. What is the worst part of being the director of Hinkson? When you say all the good parts, you're in charge of everything. What's the worst part? What's the
Oh man, the worst part. I'm sure every director would tell you something different to that
Right.
question. For me, I am, believe it or not, I am a people pleaser, and I like people to be happy with me. But obviously, in the role of director, you get a lot of people unhappy with you.
Of course.
Right.
For various reasons. So I think that's in some ways the hardest part, trying to say no to that part of my personality and know that there are some things that we have to do whether it makes people happy or not,
Right.
and that's hard.
Right.
I think in particular student discipline is a difficult thing.
Yes.
Because obviously it's a stressful situation for everyone, and working through that with the student is always hard. They don't want to be there, and honestly, I don't want to be there.
Nobody
But-
wants to be
Right.
there.
Nobody wants to be there, but it is something that we have to address usually, and trying to take care of that, and just helping to work through that and see, what are our options, what's the best option given the circumstances we find ourselves in, and how to move forward. That and along those sort of same lines is telling people no.
Right.
It's always harder than telling people yes. You asked about finances. Our finances are doing pretty good, so I get to say yes to a lot of things. But when they're not as good, you have to say no to a lot of things.
Right.
And that hurts.
Yeah.
So, I would say those are some of the harder parts.
Yeah, no, that's a great answer.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. So the next question is,
Yes.
how do you see Hinkson in the next 10 years?
In the next 10 years.
10
Ooh,
years.
it's a long
Pretty
time. long term.
That is
question.
a long term. We are actually going to be doing accreditation this next year. And so that's sort of a 7-year cycle, but 10
Right.
years. 10 years would be 2030, and we would be 40
right.
years old.
Ooh.
at
2030.
Hinkson. This next year is our 30th year as
Wow.
a school. So that would be 40 years. Our second graders would be 12th graders.
Yes.
Wow.
Wow.
I hope that Hinkson continues to serve the families that it was founded to serve. We know circumstances here in Moscow have changed in the last 5 years or so
Of course.
that have made it a little more difficult for some of those families, and so we've seen those numbers go down. But I hope that still 10 years from now we're continuing to serve expat families from our sponsoring organizations and similar organizations. I'm hoping that we continue to have students from a variety of countries. I think one of the things that makes Hinkson great is the fact that we have students from a variety of backgrounds, countries, ethnicities, and so on. And we all get to be together. And I think and hope that it will continue to do that 10 years from now. We'll continue to have good teachers. Probably not all the same teachers. We tend to have teachers here only for a time. And I think, though, the mission of Hinkson will continue to remain true towards those families in particular.
Yeah. That
I
makes
see.
sense.
Yeah.
What's the point?
Size-wise, I think we'll probably be, I don't know, 10 years out is a long ways.
Right, yeah.
But I anticipate that we will continue to be anywhere from 100 to 150 students. So similar to what I think you guys have all experienced size-wise. I don't expect it to explode or anything like that.
Get a second gym.
Yeah.
Second word.
So we'll see. Yeah.
Well, the next question is, I mean, you've been a lawyer, a professor, and you even owned your own pizza restaurant.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, what are some of the greatest lessons that you've learned from all of these experiences?
Yeah.
Ooh.
Wow. I laugh because the first one is people are bad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
I mean, I'm sorry.
Especially when you're a lawyer.
You know, you listeners out there, if you're listening to this and you're thinking, people are just basically good. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Experience tells me otherwise. Now, that doesn't mean that they're all Adolf Hitler, but it does mean that people can be mean and stupid and do kind of bad things on a regular basis without really even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And you see that in food service, you see that in the classroom, you see that in the courtroom.
Everywhere.
You see it everywhere. And it's just one of those things. But that being said, people are also capable of doing very good things too. And that is what I think is fascinating about studying history, about being involved in politics, about being in food service, is getting to see both the best and the worst in people, and getting to study that and see, under what circumstances do they do good, under what circumstances do they not, what might be driving them, and so on. But I think that's one thing. I think another thing that I've learned over the years is that, as my wife says, no experience is wasted.
True.
It's very easy to get caught into the trap of I'm too good for this, especially you're heading off to college, Simon, and somebody says, "Hey, I really need you to do this for me," and you're thinking, "Oh, come on, please, no."
Come on.
But really, no experience is wasted. God likes to use the most unusual of things. I mean, I never would have told you that owning a pizza business was the plan. And did it for 7 years and probably spent 5 of those years asking God, why? I have a PhD and I'm making pizzas and cleaning bathrooms. What's going on? But he was preparing us for a variety of things. And so I think that that's another very important lesson, is no experience is wasted. I would say a third one, if I pick a third one, would be God has been trying to teach me for the last several years to trust him especially. In the Lord's Prayer, Jesus says, "Give us this day our daily bread." And I really wish that had been weekly or monthly or annually bread. And yet it's not. It's our daily bread, and learning to trust God that way has been difficult. I'm a bit of a planner and schemer. And so I like to think about 10 years out and how do we get there from here, and yet at the end of the day we really do have to trust for each day, and that's a bit hard for my personality type.
I feel that one. I'm like that. I also agree.
Especially these days, COVID, it's like, hey, I'm going to fly this summer. No, you're not. What do you mean I'm not? So, all those sorts of things.
No, I relate to that because I'm also a planner, and so trusting stuff like that, especially now after the whole pandemic, that's like annoying. Okay, next question. That's a great answer. What brought you to Hinkson? I don't think enough people know the story.
Yeah, sure.
How'd you get it?
Interesting.
So in 2015, my wife and I did an Italian studies program through John Brown University, and we had led, 7, 8, 10, 11. This was our 5th time to take a group of university students to Italy, and we do it for a month at a time. We came back at the end of that summer to our home in Arkansas and realized something had changed. And we weren't really sure what. We weren't sure where, but we knew that God was moving us somewhere. And so we started praying about it. We started thinking about it. We started applying. I applied to, I think it was 4 different universities, 2 in the United States and 2 overseas. Didn't really hear anything back from any of them.
Right.
Which is a bit unusual. They didn't even say thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah.
So we just thought, okay, this is, we still think God's moving us, but we don't know where. Maybe this just isn't the time. So we continued to do what we were doing there in Arkansas. And then in January of 2016, my wife had to have oral surgery. She had a tooth removed. And while she was in surgery, I was bored and waiting. So I was on my phone, as I often am, and looking at some things. And I think it was really God nudging me. And he reminded me at that time that the high school that I had gone to was very similar to Hinkson. But it was in Florida. And so
Right.
I was reminded that our school had been part of something called the ACSI. And so I looked up ACSI and found their website and saw they had a jobs tab and clicked on that, and then saw they had an international jobs tab underneath that, and was scrolling through that and saw that this school needed a history and government and economics teacher. And I thought, ooh, those are all things that I can do.
Yeah.
Where is this school? Moscow, Russia.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So I sent an email off to the head of the school at that time, Mr. Hange.
Yeah.
You probably
Yes.
remember Mr. Hange.
Oh yeah.
Yes.
And sent an email off to him saying, hey, this is who I am. I have a PhD in history, law degree. I've run my own business. Would you be interested in talking to me? And that very same day, which you realize, Moscow's 8 hours ahead of us in Arkansas. So sometime that evening, he must have seen the email and got right back to me that day. And said, yes, I'd love to talk to you. So my wife was out of surgery. She was still, recovering from anesthesia and all of that. And I said, hey, how about Moscow, Russia? She's like, well...
So random.
I mean, if that's what you think, we can certainly look into it. And we talked to our kids about it. And our kids, I talked to them each separately about it, because this would obviously be a big change. And they both told us the same thing. And what they both said was, we want to be where God wants us to be.
Wow.
And that was very humbling. It's like, okay, all right. So the kids at least acknowledged that. And it was just one thing after another that God just continued to open doors for us. The housing situation, we weren't sure about that, but then the apartment across from Mr. Hange opened up, and so we had this wonderful apartment to live in, close to the school. We were able to find a buyer for our business and all these other things. So, God just opened door after door after door after having seen closed door after closed door after closed door.
Yeah.
And it just became obvious that he wanted us here. That's how we ended up in Russia.
That is a crazy story.
Oh, yeah.
It is.
Again, if you had asked me in 2015, so, Moscow, Russia, what do you think? Yeah, whatever, communists, no.
Right.
I grew up during the Cold War, so
Yeah.
my vision of Russia is
Communism.
Tom Clancy and the Cold War and this and that, so no.
Fair
Right.
enough.
But
Yeah.
now that I've lived here, we like Russia. Russia's been a great place to live.
Honestly.
Yeah.
It really
Yeah.
is. All right.
Well,
Wow.
that was a really great story.
Dude,
I didn't
this
expect
guy's
that.
full of great
Yeah.
stories.
But the next question leads us to, if you could change one thing about Hinkson, what would it be?
Oh boy. Classic.
Oy. If I could change one thing,
Only one.
only one?
Right.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
if I could change one thing about Hinkson. I think a lot of students have the perception that there is an antagonism between administration and the student body, and I would love to change that.
Right.
We are, or at least we should be, on the same page We have the same goal in mind, education. We might differ in how we go about it, or what we think is important at any given time.
Right.
But really, we're in this together, especially in our context. We're overseas in an international school in a culture that's foreign to most of us. And so really, and one of the things that attracts our family to Hinkson the most is the community there. And that community, I think, is very important. And so maintaining a trust and an openness towards each other, it is not my policy at all to lie to students. I will tell you the truth as much as I can, but also there are some things that I'm not allowed to tell. But our goal when we meet an admin team, we pray over the school, we pray over our students.
Right.
Our desire is to see each of you grow spiritually, intellectually, emotionally, and so on. And that really is our desire. So that's something that I think gets lost in the day-to-day shuffle of things, whether it's dress codes or covering your books or things of that nature. All the little things, we lose sight of the big things pretty easily. So I would say if there was one thing I could change, I would love to have a better relationship, I think, between students and administration, because we desire it, and I think students desire it too. We're just not sure quite how to go about it.
Would you say, like, for teachers right now, like, the biggest incentive to really, like, come to school and, like, help out with the things compared to, like, maybe what they get in return would be, like, the students itself and, like, really, as you said, the community. So, like, I kind of understand, like, how you really want this relationship, with the student body to be, like, healthy and good.
Yeah.
So that would really keep the actual, like, school be the school that it is as Hinkson.
Yeah. Yes. I mean, having been a teacher now for, 21 years.
Wow.
I can tell you that, most class and most days, things go smoothly. It's when they start to break down that, you start to really see what's going on, perhaps. And so, for example, as a college professor, probably the worst thing ever is having to deal with cheating, for example. Because we have this tacit agreement, this understanding between teacher and student that, look, you do your work, I grade your work, everything's fine. When you start to do or turn in other people's work, well, now we've got a breakdown. And having to work through that and figure out what the best way to handle that is very difficult. But again, I think that we have the opportunity to live life together in community at Hinkson, and that's something that's very special. And yet every community carries with it its own rules, its own standards, and so on. So the constant struggle then is what is really necessary, what is optional, what is desirable, and so on. So I'm not going to tell you that every last paragraph in the handbook is necessary. Without any one of these paragraphs, the whole thing would just fall apart. No, I don't think anybody on my staff would tell you that. At the same time, though, if you look at something and you think, wow, that's a little crazy. Whoever came up with that? Admittedly, I haven't written everything in there, but I have read it, and I think there are arguments to be made for what is in there. And so that's where we get to have that conversation, where, okay, we disagree on what this should be. All right, well, why is that? How can we do it better? What can we change? What shouldn't we change? And so on and so forth. And I think that that's the same in any relationship. In a dating relationship, in a marriage relationship, etc., parent-child, there's always that conversation going on of how should we live. And in particular, how do we live in relationship to each other?
Right.
And so, yes, there's going to be hard times. There's going to be friction. But if we remember that we're part of that same community, then hopefully we can
go through it
use
together.
that. Yeah, we can use that status of togetherness to work through the issues.
The hard part of, like, establishing that togetherness is, like, student sees I have work. I don't like work. I have a lot of work. I can't go to sleep.
Right.
Yes.
So how do I get rid of work? Oh, I
Yeah.
know. Some nerd did the work. Let's copy that.
Right.
Yeah.
And so then like they just get better at cheating, and then you get better at catching them. And you get
Right.
better. It's just, you know.
Yeah.
Right, and I think, at least from my perspective, and I think every teacher is probably different, but from my perspective, what I desire for my students is, if you have trouble, if you're having a problem, if you're having trouble, come talk to me.
Right.
I mean, that's that's what I'm there for.
Yeah.
Is to help you
Oh, yeah.
absorb the material and hopefully be able to understand it. But the easy way out is always there.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And
So-
that's the hard part. Is okay. Really, you want me to come talk to you? Yeah,
Or
I
take
do.
30 seconds to copy some of his work.
Yeah, that
Right.
takes time. That takes vulnerability, and so on.
Right.
It's just easier to copy it and move on.
Right.
Yeah.
That's why this
Yeah.
struggle is here.
Right. Mm.
I feel like a big thing that discourages kids from like talking to the people about what like they want. They get this impression that when they do, they're either met with like rejection or like sometimes like condensation or like just,
Yeah.
like, you know,
Right.
they don't feel like they can actually do anything.
Yeah, and that's I will admit that is a hard part, and it is very easy to slip into that. I think as administrators, especially, we see a different picture perhaps than the individual student does, and we make the mistake then of thinking, well, everybody sees this. What's the problem? Everybody sees this the same as me. And yet that's not true. And that's something I have to constantly remind myself of is, look, just because you see it this way doesn't mean everybody else will. I have access to a lot of information that not everybody has, and some of it, nobody has access to it. So when I evaluate a situation based on that information, I have to constantly remind myself that, look, this person you're dealing with doesn't have access to all of that. So oftentimes it becomes a matter of explaining. Here's what I see. Let me show you the broader picture that I'm seeing, and let me explain to you then. In light of that, the answer is no. And like I said, that is the hard part. I don't like having to say no.
It's not fun.
But a lot of times we
got
do.
to.
Yeah, we have to.
So sometimes it's simply because I do get to think about what will Hinkson look like in 10 years.
Right.
Long after students are gone. So anyways.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, this is the last question. What is Hinkson's greatest selling point?
What's the best
Ooh.
quality Hinkson's got? Very best thing.
I think it's what we've just been talking about, that community.
Oh, yeah, of
I
course.
think that our teachers and staff, by and large, have all made sacrifices to be at Hinkson.
Of course.
Whether it's moving here, whether it's the pay, or
Right.
what have you.
Yeah.
The choice to teach at Hinkson is a choice. And so I think that alone is something that is a good selling point for our school. I think we can tell parents in all honesty, our teachers do want to be here. I mean, there's nobody's making them be here, and so you know that your student is going to be taught by a teacher who wants to be here.
Right.
I think that from a parent perspective, two things also beyond that. One is just the small class size. You really, and I think you all agree with this, you really get to know your class.
Yeah,
True.
exactly.
And so you get to know them well. I
Yeah.
mean, I think back to my high school, it wasn't even that big of a school, but we had even just 48 people, I think,
48.
around 50 in my graduating class.
That's crazy.
And I definitely don't remember them all.
Nope.
I remember maybe 10 of them.
Right.
And I know that I probably had class with all of them at some point over those 4 years, but at
It
the
was a blur.
same time, you still don't
Yeah.
get to know them all that well. Whereas at Hinkson, you're going to get to know your class
Oh, yeah. It's a
really
family.
well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's been really cool to see, not just between grades, but even a group like you guys getting to
Right.
know each other and to do stuff together
Yeah.
and so on. So I think that's part of it too. And then also just the spiritual environment. We really do desire spiritual growth in our students, and I think parents appreciate that as well.
Wonderful.
All right, well, yeah, that's it for the Q&A. Thanks to all the people that sent us questions.
You made it.
Yes.
You did it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now for comment time.
Time.
We got quite a few comments, but
Right. But
They were all emojis.
yeah, we got one really good comment that I think is worth the time from my brother Jaden Frecka.
Oh man.
What is your favorite genre of music and why?
Ooh, let's go around. All right, you first, Jack.
Okay, so
It's rap.
I listen to like a ton of music, as I've said before, but lately I think it's a lot of rap. Artists like Lil Uzi Vert, Travis Scott.
The auto-tune boys.
There's a lot of rappers that I
right,
like.
yeah.
He loves that auto-tune.
Why? I think honestly it's mainly just because of the sound of it, you know? Like I wouldn't say that like lyrics are the selling point for me. A lot of the time it's just the sound, it's in some ways it's the culture and just kind of seeing how rap is influencing all these other genres.
Sure. I also listen to like a ton of different music. Like I don't have like a specific genre that I like the most, but like lo-fi is like the generic answer that just like gets you through like homework, making the schedule for college and
Right.
everything. Like that's what you play in the background to keep your brain in a good place.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah,
I love that. That's fine.
Yeah.
What about you?
I've been listening a lot to upbeat, like electronic. Like I'm not really into like lyrics and like rap and stuff as much like Charlie's over here is, but I've been really enjoying that like instrumentals and those like electronic just melody that like is quite upbeat.
He's the upbeat rhythm.
Yeah.
He wants to feel good about himself.
But that's kind of
What were you,
simple.
Dr. Favorite genre of music?
Yeah.
Did someone ask you this question?
I'm old, so.
Well, you're not old. You're still an adult.
Sure, I am. I would say I primarily spend my music time, listening to contemporary Christian music, but also 80s and 90s rock would be pretty high up there.
Oh, dude, that's good stuff.
So,
Yeah.
those would be my two.
But why?
Why? I mean, the 80s and 90s and even the CCM would be the music of my youth.
Oh,
Yeah.
it brings it back.
So,
Nostalgia.
first CDs were purchased in the early 90s. So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of when I began really listening to music would have been early 90s. So, 90s music, late 80s.
Yeah.
Bands like U2, Police.
Ah, yes, the nostalgia. Everyone needs nostalgia. That's comment time. We have one comment. That's
All right, cool. Well, thanks to
Jaden
my brother
Frecka.
for the comment.
Yeah.
And I mean, thanks to everyone else who commented. You know,
Yeah.
just because your comment didn't make it doesn't mean that I didn't read it.
But
I
like,
did.
comment questions. We need questions. Give
That's
us
true.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Just
actually, next episode it's your last chance. So if you wanna make it, it's your last chance.
All right, guest topic. People just graduated Hinkson. Got a
Yeah.
bunch of people going off to college.
Yeah.
Very common thing to go into is business.
Yeah.
Right.
Very, very common.
Yeah.
So what would be helpful? Learning how to start your own business. Now you've started your own business. You've
Right.
done your own business.
We
7
did.
years.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So how would you do that? If I have no business and I want to start one, what do I do?
Yeah. People will tell you that the first step is to identify something that's missing. And
niche.
that's that. Yeah, your niche.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that, in our case, was Italian pizza. Northwest Arkansas is not exactly a culinary hotbed.
Nope.
So, an American pizza in general is honestly lacking.
Very.
I mean, I know we probably have some Papa John's and Domino's fans out there.
Right.
But trust me,
Right.
you're missing
Yeah.
real pizza.
You are.
And when we lived in Italy for 7 months,
Wow.
we got to experience real Italian pizza.
The actual
And-
pizza.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when we moved back, it's like, wow, I'll eat it. I love pizza. I'll eat it. But wow, this is not the same. So, I mean, I think that's sort of key is that initial idea. What is it that your business is going to provide? Are there other people doing it? Maybe there are, but they're doing it differently. And so there's something unique about you. You asked earlier about, what is Hinkson's biggest selling point?
Right.
I think you have to think through that for any business. What is it that's driving your business? What is your selling point for HCP? Why should anybody listen to HCP?
Right.
What is it that pulls people in.
I don't know.
So come
We're
on,
just doing
it's
this.
your good looks.
Oh yeah, it's
Of
Chuck.
course,
It's Chuck. It's
Right.
Chuck.
No.
We have a brand.
Yeah, he's the
You gotta-
brand.
Yeah.
So I think that's that's the initial thing is the idea, and that's the hardest part in some ways because you just don't know.
Mm-hmm.
When is the idea going to hit? Will it really be something that sticks? My wife will tell you that I like to constantly come up with ideas. I will start a lot of conversations with "I had an idea." And usually they're really bad ones, but that's okay because the starting of a business is something that you go through that process, and there will be a lot of bad ideas.
Of course,
but it's finding those good ideas and running with them
Right.
that's important. So yeah, I would say that's how you get started. You got to think of what is it that makes you you? What is it that makes it unique? What are you going to actually offer? Service, product, and so on. So. Yeah.
And then you gotta do all stuff like get the land and then build and then.
Yeah, I mean, in our
Yeah,
case,
papers.
we were doing a restaurant, so we had to have a space where we could have a commercial kitchen, which has all kinds of layers of complexity to it.
Right.
But it was an interesting process. My politics side loved it because I got to drive down to the state capitol to file plumbing plans with the health department. So that was an experience. Boring in a lot of ways, but at the same time interesting to watch it happen.
You in the state capitol.
You have to have permissions from all these different officials and so on. So it kind of depends on the type of business you're doing, who all you have to get permission from, and so on.
You need permission from somebody. Somebody's got to give you a paper that lets you do
Yeah, I mean, virtually any place you'll have to have a business license, and if you don't operate under your own name, you've got to file for that too.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things in there.
I was like kind of wondering, have you got like any like lawsuits or like any like something that like
From the business?
yeah, or
We
like,
were never sued as a business. I have been sued.
Really?
Yes, but not through the business. It was something else. It was while I was in law school even. I didn't even get out of law school without getting sued.
Wow. I mean,
that was pretty crazy.
Incredible.
I was working for the district attorney's office in Jefferson County, Colorado, and we were doing something called civil forfeiture, where if you use property to commit a felony, the state gets to take the property from you. So we did that to this guy who was engaged in an interesting type of economic crime. We took some property from him, including some money, and he was in jail and not happy. So he decided to sue anybody and everybody who had been involved in his cases. And my name had appeared on something. I was still a student, so my name appeared as having assisted an attorney on what's called a legal brief. And so he filed a lawsuit against me and my boss and my boss's boss and the Supreme Court of Colorado, the appellate courts of Colorado, anyone and everyone he could think of. He sued us all.
Like a real American.
And so I was walking into class one day, and this guy walks up to me and says, "Are you Scott Jones?" Yes. I have some papers for you.
Wow.
Okay. And I had just gotten married, a few months before, and I thought, am I that bad of a husband? I'm already getting a divorce? What is this?
Yeah.
And so I open the envelope and I look at it. It's like, oh, it's
that guy.
It's that guy. Oh, didn't know he cared.
Oh, so sweet.
That was exciting.
Yeah.
So did he win?
No, he did not.
All right, that makes sense.
It went all the way to the 10th Circuit Court of Appeals.
Wow.
And he lost there. And I think that's where it ended. So, Yep.
That's the American way. You sue everybody.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Yep. I honestly, with what's going on in America right now, I think a lot of school districts are running scared. A lot of businesses are running scared because of
COVID.
Lawsuits. Yeah.
Right.
No, not because of the disease, but because of the lawsuits that you can file as a result of the disease.
So you didn't have the plastic
Oh.
screen sued.
That's right. I got sick.
Oh,
So it's your fault.
it's your fault, business.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
Love that. Oh, no. Okay.
So American.
So American.
It is.
So very
Yes.
American.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's say I just started my new business.
Yes.
Yeah. What problems should I expect? What problems did you have as a business? What did you run into? Some obstacles.
Lack of money.
Yeah, well,
Right.
there you go.
I mean, banks typically want to lend to you if you have money, but the whole point of starting a business is to make money because you don't have it. So
Exactly.
it's a bit of a vicious circle in terms of convincing a bank to loan you money when you don't have money.
Yeah.
For the first year and a half, yeah, I think it was about a year and a half, I didn't get paid.
Ooh.
My business partner did, but I still had a job teaching university, so I said I will not take a salary. That way he could get paid and our employees could get paid.
Oh.
So, I mean, those first few months are really rough in terms of making it. And they say something like half of all restaurants fail in the first 2 years.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, getting past that 2-year mark is a big thing. And I can understand it. I mean, we were learning all kinds of lessons day in and day out about how to operate and keep your doors open and everything else. So,
one thing I remember, like you said this in economics, like something was like concerned about your furnace that was like too hot. And you had to install that.
Oh
thing.
yeah, the fire marshal in our town
Tell us that
didn't want us to have a wood-fired pizza oven because there's a fire.
Yeah.
In a wood-fired pizza, yes. Would you believe that? And it's a wood fire in a wood-fired pizza oven.
I cannot believe that.
I know, and you're
How could you
basically,
do that?
you know, from the fire department's perspective, we were basically asking to build a fire every day in the middle of our historic downtown. And what if something went wrong and you burned the whole downtown down?
Downtown.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you know, I understand that, except that fire is being built inside a concrete enclosure that is designed to contain the fire, and the fire never comes out. So we were trying to convince him that, you know, it's safe, it's okay. They use these all over Italy, and notice the country hasn't burned down yet. So it's all right. But he was insisting that we install something called a fire suppression system.
That's what it was.
So yeah, if you ever go to a restaurant and you look at their kitchen, you'll see these little nozzles pointing down at a cooking surface.
Right.
And those nozzles contain a fire-suppressing chemical in them. And so he insisted that we had to install one with those nozzles pointing at the fire, in case the fire ever had a fire.
Right.
As well, it's going to have a fire. There's a fire there.
Yeah.
That was that whole wood-fired part.
Right.
But what happens is, the way it starts is you have to get over a certain temperature for the nozzles to be activated. And so we were constantly having to take the temperature of the fire to make sure it wasn't too fiery.
Wow.
And would set off our fire suppression system.
It's like having a fire alarm in front of, like, on top of the camping fire.
Yes.
While doing the camping.
Yes, and hoping that the fire alarm doesn't go off.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That story is so funny every time I think about it.
Right.
So, but you know, that sort of thing, again, from his perspective, the rules make sense, but the practical application did not make sense. And it cost us a lot of money.
Oh, man.
At a time when we didn't have a lot of money, so it was very difficult. But you kind of had to have a fire in order to have the wood-fired pizza. Again, we're back to that fire thing.
Right.
So, we did what we were told we had to do, and that's how
Kept
we got
on
started.
keeping on.
Yeah.
That's what you did.
Yeah. And honestly, that's you mentioned that showing up every day is a big thing.
Oh.
And I think that's true in everything that you do, whether it's school or work. Showing up every day, or relationships, showing up every day.
Consistency.
Yep.
Yeah.
Putting the time in and day out to become good at what you do.
Ooh.
Yeah.
But nobody wants to put forth that effort. It's effort.
It is. It's
Right.
hard, but it is rewarding. You know, we got to know our customers. We got to know our employees. We got to learn more about ourselves in the whole process.
Wow.
We took care of my family for 5 years. So it was, it was a good experience.
Okay, so like, how about we'll end with this? Like, okay, so if anybody's like in a business that's like struggling and is like trying to put its feet in the ground, like, what's one piece of advice you would offer someone trying to start a business? One gem advice that you learned.
One.
Just one. Maybe two, maybe three.
Maybe 2 or 3. again, I would say don't underestimate the power of that consistent work.
Right.
I'm a big football fan.
Right.
I have a football jersey on right now.
He does.
I'm a big football fan. Those guys play for 90 minutes, but they train all week for that 90 minutes. And really, they've been training for years for those 90 minutes. And it's very difficult to keep that in mind when you're in that training process. That, okay, I don't see the end result now, but I have to trust that if I keep at it, that when the time comes, it will be there.
Yeah.
And you see that out on a soccer pitch. You can see the difference between really great players and okay players. And those really great players, you just watch them and it's a thing of beauty.
Yeah.
To be able to see how their body and their mind work together so well that these constantly changing situations, they just know how to react to that. Well, how did they get that? Some of it is innate talent, absolutely. Don't get me wrong there. But most of it is actually really, really, really hard work.
Right.
Over an extended period of time. And that is what I would say is the biggest thing for businesses. And I would say, too, from a personal standpoint, is, again, that trust issue. You have to learn to trust. If this is where God wants you and this is what he wants you to do, you have to trust enough to be able to put that work in and day out, knowing that the results will follow at some point.
Wow.
Okay.
So commitment and consistency.
Yeah.
Basically.
And trust in God.
And trust.
That's big.
Yeah.
Definitely.
All right. Well, I think that's it for today.
That's
So,
good.
Wow.
Thank you so much
That's
for
great.
coming.
Thank you, guys.
Dude, it's been an honor, man.
Yeah.
Uh,
Wow.
Don't forget to like and subscribe. Don't forget to comment.
Comment
some
questions.
Interesting, juicy
Yeah.
comments.
Any questions?
Yeah.
And
If you want a
yeah.
free t-shirt, you better subscribe, though.
Yeah.
See you guys next time.
All right.
Peace.
Bye-bye.